Hey, I'm Alex Madden from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Timbertown from Alley Cat Games. Timbertown is a two-player tile drafting game with a slightly unique twist, and that twist is this river over here that is constantly shifting between the players. Let's start with how you score points in this game, and then from there we'll go through the gameplay before diving into the review, thoughts and opinions, and all of that. The way you're going to score points in this game is by fulfilling the goals of these various cards. There are 7 cards in each game, and I should note there's a whole bunch more cards that are not in each game. You're going to have 1 card of each of the 7 colors. 2 of those are going to be static. These are always the same. The rest are going to be variable, allowing you to have different combinations of scoring in every single game. For example, workshops in this game, that's going to be these blue tiles over here. Each blue tile scores 2 points for each other blue tile in the same row and column. So you're kind of incentivized to set up these structured tiers where they all intersect on these I was going to say diagonals, but not. On the orthogonal lines, they all intersect. We have homes over here. Each yellow tile scores 5 points if in a pair, but it could just as easily, meaning for example, a bunch of yellow tiles together on your board, you want to specifically to have a pair, 2 at a time. 1 is nothing, 3 is nothing, 2 would be 5 points each. But it could just easily have been homes. Each group of connected homes is going to score points for the full connection. You want the largest possible connection, getting a tier to give scoring up to 80 points, up to 40 points for 8+ tiles. So you can see how these different cards are going to give you different ways and incentives for how you build your board. Those tiles are going to be on this river. So that's basically what you're doing as far as scoring points. Each tile goes on your board. Each one has a different scoring criteria. There's a few ways of getting extra points at the end. The person who finishes the board first gets 5 points. Remaining constructions unused are worth a point. There's a few things that are worth extra bonus points. But the core idea is going by these tiles over here, these cards over here, to establish how you're going to score. The tile drafting, that's going to go back and forth between the players. Right now it's this player's turn. I'll just call it yellow and blue. It's not really like yellow, it's more, I think it's red. I mean, the pieces are red. We're going to go with red and blue. In fact, these actually, let's swap those around over there. We have red and blue over here. We're going to have red going first because that's the current tile in front of us. Red is going to choose on their turn to do one of 3 things. They can either pass, in which case it goes to the next player's turn. Alternatively, they can draft a tile from the board, anywhere on the board, putting it in its associated column. Meaning if you take a tile from here, it has to go into column 1. It cannot go in column 2 because you're not pulling from the second tier on that river. The third option is you can reserve a tile. This blue tile might be great for me, but it might be great for me later on, so I can put my marker down in it, reserving it. I'm the only one who can take it later as an extra free action. That's going to be the 3 core actions you can do on your turn. I say core actions as if there are others. I mean, I guess there are others. There are free actions you can do. There are a bunch of free actions you can do, but the non-free actions, the core actions, let's call them that, are going to be drafting a tile, reserving a tile, or passing. That's basically what you do. You take a tile. So let's go ahead, for example, let's take this tile. This tile wants to be an interconnected group, so we're going to go ahead and take this and put it down in this tile here. It goes to blue. Blue can pick one of these. They're going to take this green one. Green one's going to score 2 points if placed in column 1, 3 in column 4, so they're going to reserve the green one. They're going to reserve the green one because the green ones are in parks. They give you the most points if they make the way all the way to the end. So he is locking up his boat for a few turns, but the net result is he might get a tile that goes into column 5 being worth 5 points. That's a round. We go to the next round, which means we're going to shift this down. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I did that wrong. We're going to shift this down. This is going to come around over here, and we're going to place it onto the river, and then we're going to grab new tiles to place them onto this new tile. So you have tiles slowly moving down the river. We're going to place tiles out, and now we shift turn order. You can see this tile is blue. This tile over here is blue, which means it's now blue's turn first, which means players are always having 2 turns in a row. First, then second, and then first, then second in reverse order. So you're basically snaking back and forth as you play the game. It's now blue's turn. We already know we don't want this yet. Maybe we'll go ahead and take that yellow tile, knowing we can work our way to pairs of yellows. So we'll grab that yellow, although you know what? Actually, I think we'll take this one because this comes into play with a boat on it. These construction tiles, that's for these construction yards over here, they come into play with extra buildings on them that you can benefit from. And since I've locked up my boat, having an extra boat can actually be really useful for me right now. So I'm going to take this one, placing it over here because it has all those pathways, and then putting this off in my reserve where I can use that later to reserve an extra tile when normally I wouldn't because my boat is currently occupied. So that gives me a little bit of flexibility. These, by the way, are double-sided. Your individual ones are one color, but the ones you get as extras, those are double-sided depending on who took the tile. And these are use it and then lose it. These, once you take it back, you can repeat using it. That's the basic structure of what you're doing. You're going to, once again, it's back to red's turn. Red can pick from this row if they want, and in fact, maybe they will. Maybe we'll take this tile over here, and we'll place it over there, trying to connect a beaver over here. Beavers are going to go on the tiles, and they can be worth 5 points if you can draw a pathway from both ends of your board for that beaver. We'll take this, we'll slot it along, and then we'll put out 3 new tiles. That is basically the way the game plays. You go back and forth taking turns, alternating who's first each round, putting those constructions in play that do different things as you do that, being mindful of the different scoring opportunities and how they're going to affect your strategy, and then do that until your board is filled. Because of the fact that you can do things like passing, you might not fill your board. I mean, hypothetically, you cannot fill your board at all, because once a tile goes off the river, once these come along, and once a tile, let's pretend this tile is not taken, once those go away, this tile will go away forever. Tiles will slowly fall off the edge of the board, which means those tiles are gone. Once both players have filled their grid, or the tiles have run out, that will be the end of the game, and hopefully you filled your board. And the first player to do so gets 5 points, and now you know 97% of what you need to know to play this game. There's a few small extra rules around constructions, how those operate, the exact scoring on the cards, but that's the basic idea of how to play Timbertown. Which means it's time for my thought, reviews, opinions, all that stuff, starting off with what I like over here, which is I love the game. The moving river is the main hook of this game. There's so many games that do scoring in different ways. Here's a bunch of stuff. They all score differently. Here's even variable cards. I do love variable cards, I'll say that. I like games that give you things that you have to try to figure out how to take those things to score more efficiently than other players. Many games do it. Many games do it well. One of my favorites is Cascadia. There's so many great games out there that do this concept of, here's a bunch of stuff, take the stuff you think will score best, combined with the other stuff, and then the extra layer that I really appreciate that this game does is they give you scoring cards that give you variability. So it's not just about the stuff and how the stuff combines with other stuff, which I already like, but it's different each time you play. So because the yellow score differently one game and the green score differently a different game, they all score differently. Well, 5 of the 7 cards are variable game to game. It means that I'm working with slightly different min-maxings of the puzzles of how to make it all come together. And I like that variability that the game adds. So Timbertown so far, not doing anything particularly innovative, but it's doing things I like well. Scoring variability, and then variability within the scoring conditions to give you more flexibility or different experiences as you play. But the real hook of this game is the fact that it has this moving river. That's where the game is different. That adds you a bit of a FOMO aspect to the game, and it does so even at the cost of the player count, because the downside, one of the downsides of this game, is the fact that it's only 2 players. It's not a downside for me. I'll just play it as a 2-player game, but if you are looking at different kinds of games out there, you're like, that one's 1 to 4 players and Timbertown's just 2, that is a limitation on the game, but it is a limitation that allows it to do something very clever in the back and forth between the 2 players. First of all, the fact that players end the turn and then start the next round, it constantly gives you this feeling of, I can get 2 things in a row, look how I can push that because I'm getting 2 turns in a row. I can take this and then wait for it to go to the next column and get that first dibs over there. I love that. It gives you a lot of push and pull within the mechanisms of the game. I also like the moving river. The moving river is a really clever aspect because sometimes in most of these games, it's just a question of, here are things I like, do I take that thing? In this game, it's, here's the thing that I like, but I actually don't need it now. I need it on column 3. But if I don't take it now, I might not get it at all. So is it better to have in column 1, 2? Do I risk you taking it, or do I reserve it? Knowing that if I reserve it for column 3, that means I can only reserve, unless I get more boats, I can only reserve it 1 time until I actually take that tile. So that puts a real element of pushing the other player, of being mindful of how far you can push your luck. Although I don't know if it's luck so much as being mindful. You're pushing something. You're definitely pushing some degree of something, but it's usually the other player, how important it is to their board. If you pay attention to their board and see what they're going for, that will give you a leg up, which you might not like because that means you have to pay attention to their board, but honestly, because it's only a 2-player game, it's not that hard to glance at your board and be like, you're not going for yellows, and then you work on the fact that that's going to be worth getting. You'll still have it in column 4 because yellows aren't helpful to him, so why would he take it? So you have that river. The river is the main mechanism. This 2-player game with this line over here, with the river, is the main aspect that makes this game stand out from other games in the genre, giving you something familiar and yet also with a very different tug-of-war that you typically see in these games. As far as I don't like in the game, first of all, not really something I don't like, but a detraction from what I do like. As much as the goal cards are variable, they're not like game-breaking variable for the most part, meaning when I play this game different ways, usually the goal cards have some sort of structure. For example, parks, many of the green cards just want the green tiles to be in certain places on the board. So yes, it's different to a degree, but that doesn't drastically change my decision space if I need it on the the last column, or if I need it in the center 4 squares. So the gold cards are variable, but there's some similarities within these genres. And again, I mentioned Cascadia earlier. Cascadia has the same kind of thing. So I like the variability. I'm happy. I'm not complaining, but it's not massively variable. Just make sure you know what to expect over there. I'll also say, and this is a common complaint about the game, but it is a complaint worth mentioning, the visibility of the colors of the tiles is really not clear at a glance. The tiles are green. At a glance, the tiles are green. Happens to be the purple ones over here. Those I find to be the most obvious, but tiles are green. There's small little symbols in the corner and a small color preference on them. It's not the hardest in terms of being able to see and comprehend what's going on, but it's also not the easiest. It's not like you have instant visibility of what's happening. It could have been significantly clearer without detracting from how, you know, nice everything looks. So I think that's definitely a small ding against what the game is, against how the game's production is, I should say. I'll also say that the square nature of your board, the 16 grid square as opposed to something like hexagons or whatnot, or more open-ended structure, while I do understand why it's necessary given the tile drafting mechanism of the game, I will say it slightly detracts from how open-ended your structure building could be. So again, when I think of other games and how much you can sprawl in different directions, this one is much more confined, which again, not a big deal, but that's a small thing that holds it back a little bit. As far as I can see, others not liking the 5-point beaver for finishing your board first. That feels like it's a little bit of a first play advantage over there. And again, at the end of the day, between passing, between all the things that happen in the game, it's not likely to make a huge difference, but there is a definite potential for a first player advantage, because assuming all players do things the same, that first player is going to get an extra 5 points. Meaning if you and I played the exact same game as far as the structure of our actions, first player is getting an extra 5 points. There's nothing you can do about that. I specifically put this in what I can see others not liking, because on average, at the end of the day, between passing, between reserving a tile, all that manipulation does mean that it's usually not going to incidentally come down to the first player anyway. But I bet if you run the numbers and the stats, there'd be on average, the first player gets those 5 points more often, because that just seems reasonable. The only thing I don't know is how more often. Are we talking about, 53 to 47, or are we talking about 60 to 40s? And that's why not a huge bother to me. Might be a bother to you. As far as final thoughts on Timbertown, I like Timbertown. I was pleasantly surprised by this one, and I was already kind of expecting to like it. It's got that kind of thing I like in a game. It's about building stuff. It's gathering tiles. It's trying to optimize your score. It's different variable scoring. All of that I knew, and yet despite that, I was like, but is it going to be better than other games I have in the genre? And better, I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of games that I really like in this genre, but I will say the river mechanism is different. Different is just as good as better sometimes, because it gives you a different experience, and the push and pull of this river is very much the hook that keeps me coming back to this one, at least as of right now. Overall, I'm really enjoying this one. For right now, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I like the push and pull. I have a lot of games that do this already, but this one gives you something different, which is definitely worth paying attention to. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Luna Capital from Devere Games if you're looking for one that has, this is one of those games that it's one of the games that does this kind of point scoring optimization that never took off quite as much as many others while still being very excellent. Check out Luna Capital, and then similarly check out Tir Na Nog from Grand Gamers Guild, another game that kind of gives you that crunchy aspect of when do I take something, who is someone else going to take it first, all that little puzzle as you try to optimize your score. In any case, then, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.